Let's take a look at this last one here. When we click on login, we have a login form. And when we click on register, we have a registration form. Those two look suspiciously alike. I think I could probably put that into a single login form component. So that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to make a function component here for login form. And here I'm going to return a form. And whenever I make a form, I add an onSubmit handler that has a handle submit. And we'll make that handle submit, take the event, and we'll say event prevent default. All right, and then let's go ahead and add a div here where we're going to put a label for the username and an input with a type of text. But we want to associate this label with this input, so I'm going to give this an HTML4 of username, and we'll give this input an ID of username. Great, and then we'll do a very similar thing for our password. So this will be a password field. We'll call this password, and then the type is going to be password, so nobody can sneak around and look at other people's passwords. We don't want them to do that. And then we'll make another div here for our button. This is going to be a type of submit, and this is what's going to allow people to hit the enter key when they're in one of these text fields, or to click on the button and it will call our submit handler. So here, this is one of the generic pieces of this because here it says login and in this one it says register. So we'll accept that as a prop and call this button text, and we'll just destructure that. And then we'll grab onSubmit as well so that we can call onSubmit with the values from the form. So we'll want the username and password. And we're going to need to get those from our form. So let's go ahead and take that event target, which is going to be the form where the submit handler was called on. And then that will have elements. And thanks to the ID that we have here, we can grab this element of username and this element of password to get those values. So we're going to get username and password. But these aren't the actual text values. These are the DOM nodes that have those text values. So we're going to say username.value and password.value. So anyone using the login form can do so, and they pass an onSubmit handler, which will be called with the username and password. So great, now that we've got that all set up, let's come on down here to our app, and we'll add the login form here with the onSubmit for login, and we'll add that function here in a second. Then we'll have a button text of login. And we'll do a very similar thing for our registration. We'll have a function called register, and we'll call this register. And then up here, we can have a function called login. It's going to take some form data. And for now, we'll just console.log the string login with that form data. And then, of course, we'll do a very similar thing for register. So let's save that and try this out. We'll click on login. I'll type in user password, hit login, and let's take a look at our console. There it is, sweet, user and password. And then if I close this and go to register, hello, and 1, 2, 3, and then I hit enter. And so we know that our submit handler is working just fine with the enter key, which is what we want. We're getting our password and our username, and eventually we'll be able to send that to a backend to register a user. In review, what we did here is I created a login form that has a submit handler for this form. We render out a label for the username and an input, and a label for the password as well as an input, and then a submit button. And then our submit handler grabs those values after preventing the default behavior of a full page refresh. It passes those values to the onSubmit handler, and then down here inside of these individual dialogues, we render the login form with an onSubmit handler for login and the button text of login, and then one for registration as well. And then all we're doing right now is just logging to the console, and in the future we'll be able to actually hit a backend to log in the user.